Hot on the heels of our previous episode of Defining Duke was an interview that drops from IGN involving Phil Spencer. A lot of questions were asked, but one of the most noteworthy quotes is where Phil stands on 343's seemingly make or break moment as a developer with Halo Infinite. Quote, Halo will be here 10 years from now. Is Infinite the linchpin on whether it survives that long? Absolutely not. The game has such a rabid fan base and such a rich history and lore that it's just an IP that's going to be with us. We don't take that for granted, but I definitely believe in my core that is true. I think there are going to be millions of people that are going to play that game and love that game. I'm sure there will be some people that will see opportunities for us to do more, and that's just the nature of being in the entertainment business, and we accept it. That's just the kind of thing that we have signed up for, and we love being a part of that. I think game teams, whether it's our teams or any team out there, they put enough pressure on themselves in delivering for customers. And when you're on a franchise that's as big as Halo, with such focus on every step and every word that's said, I trust the team, I trust the progress they're making, and I have confidence in Halo Infinite. And I just think that's all that needs to be said there. I don't think it's make or break. I just don't believe that. End quote. So we're going to get into some more. But yeah, I apologize to the audience who, we literally record on Wednesdays. So sometimes we're a little behind on stuff that happens that same week. It's just one of the unfortunate things that occurs with how we balance Sacred Symbols, Defining Duke, recording times, getting the thread in for patron questions. So if this sounds old, it's because it's a little bit old. Another noteworthy quote coming from Phil Spencer is his stance on acquisitions. Quote, it doesn't mean that every team has to end up selling their studio, but I think it is a natural and healthy part of an industry that certain teams will start a studio. Many of them will fail. We know most small businesses fail, whether it's video games or anything else, but those that make it through and at such a kind of risk-filled journey for them to get to the point to create real value, I'm always going to congratulate when teams get to the point where they realize that value through acquisition or just massive independent success, if that's the path they also start to on, end quote. Phil also noted the weaknesses of Xbox's portfolio in that conversation, which was a global presence as well as more family games. So, chock full of Phil comments here, starting with Halo, ending with acquisitions. Where do you want to begin, Cog?
Yeah, let me start with Halo, man. I actually agree with Phil completely on this. And I understand the sentiment from the Xbox community because I feel if this was a situation prior to all the studio acquisitions, right? Then I would say, yo, Infinite got to hit. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, if Infinite don't hit, it's going to be a problem. And don't get me wrong, there's still pressure in the sense of we all want a great Halo Infinite game. But this whole make it or break it part, I'm with him on that because it's like, at the end of the day, it's going to be around. You know what I'm saying? It's going to, look, if it don't hit, then I've always said this. I've been a firm believer that, there may be some structural changes at 343 coming off of 5 Guardian. Again, not that it was a terrible game, but from a campaign standpoint, it wasn't well received. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So now with this, we'll see. You know what I'm saying? So I'm with him on that part. As far as the the whole the portfolio part, I think that, I think they're going to look into other situations where they get family-friendly games. They need a diverse lineup if they're going to make Game Pass the driving force. You can't just have all RPGs, right? You just can't have all. I'm sorry, man. I know that's what you want. But you can't have all of what genre. So you got to have the family games. We talked about the fighting games, right? We talk about, JRPGs, right? You got to have this diverse lineup that hits all these different regions that's going to appeal, the racing and all this other stuff. So I'm with him there. And the last point, and I'll finish up. I love what he said about the studio acquisition part too, in reference to stability, because me and you've talked about this, Manny, right? Mm-hmm. When people look at being acquired, some gamers look at it as a negative. And I'm like, they're just buying up company, studios, bro, and they're not and it's like, it's such a risk-filled position and thing that it's like, to get someone to fund your game, to get it across the finish line and to have that stability where you're not looking over, you got to pay the rent, it's real, man. So it's like, I like those stories where we hear a project come over the finish line because someone helped out, whether it be Sony, Microsoft, whoever, right? Yep. You want your favorite studios and games to exist. And if they can't complete it or get it done, what's the other alternative? They go away, they die. So they can say that they did it on their own, they nurtured it by themselves. Like, cut your ego out. If someone's willing to help you and they believe in your project, I'm doing the deal. That's just me. But what you think, Matty?
I'm the same way, of course. Yeah, if I build a team and there's value that can be put on it, and you don't got to look over your shoulder as often, yeah, you take that 10 out of 10 times. And I think anyone who doesn't, I mean, yeah, it's great if you can remain independent, but like you said, yeah, I do believe there's a stripping of the ego, and I understand like the desire to keep these more independent giants like a Square Enix independent. That makes more sense. But I'm talking about a Yacht Club Games, like who's making Shovel Knight and they're publishing Cyber Shadow. Like, yeah, those companies, like, you know, if they're being offered money to join Xbox or PlayStation or Nintendo, it's like, you know what? Yeah, you should take that, right? Like you don't need to worry too much now. For Halo, it's interesting because he talked about Halo and he of course mentions the team, but he more so talks about the IP. Like Halo's going to be with us. But then he also mentions how, you know, this, you know, he doesn't want to put pressure on the team. And I do wonder if Infinite isn't very good and it isn't well received and doesn't have those legs. What does happen with 343? Now, a lot of people go doomsday level and say, shut them down. No, it's never going to happen. Never. Mm-hmm. But we saw them shift a little bit with the Killer Instinct. It's really the only example we have where I just don't want to take that off the table. I think after 4 being it's well received, but it dies fast, and 5 being a game that the campaign was so poor to people that it really damaged the property as a whole. It really did, right? The complaints did not source from, we talked about this with Chris on an episode of Defining Duke Ultimate. A lot of the complaints for 5 were really not about the multiplayer. Yeah, sprinting was a little upsetting for people, but it really came from the campaign. Like, it matters that much to people. So with Infinite having this 10-year-long plan, and they're saying, oh, yeah, like the campaign's going to evolve, which we talked about.
There's that word again, Maddie.
They're like, it's going to evolve. I'm like, all right, if it doesn't have a finish, kind of like Halo 5 didn't have a finish, I don't know how people are going to be like, yeah, 343 is the team. I don't know how Xbox could continue to justify. And that's not me saying I don't trust 343, because everything I've seen about Halo Infinite, you know, withstanding the August showcase on a graphical level. Yes. Gameplay-wise, multiplayer, what we're hearing, everything sounds great to me. It really does. So I feel like this is going to be the one that they do hit, but we need to talk about the realistic possibility of if they don't. And so I'm glad that Phil's got this back. He's not putting more pressure on the team, but I also think it's a question where he can kind of non-answer it, because he's not going to sit there and go, Cog, they fuck up. We're gonna have a talk. We're gonna have a talk with 343, and we might get rid of them. Like, he's not going to say that. And so, you know, of course, that I don't want to devalue his answer here, which was much more open than I think people anticipated. But I do think people are kidding themselves if Infinite comes out and it's busted, if they don't sit down and have a talk and go, okay, we brought in Joe Staten, we've done everything, we gave you the money, we gave you an extra year, and we still have something that's not really great. What happened?
Absolutely right. I mean, the tea leaves are there. The fact that Staten was already, I always put butchers. Is it Staten or Staten? I always butcher it.
I thought it was Staten as well. But
Staten, the legend, Bungie. So when Staten is brought in, you can't tell me that there is, at this late in the stage, that there is some type of concern on a level that something needed to be handled, addressed, shifted on a managerial level. Mm-hmm. So to me, again, if they drop the ball with Infinite, then something may have to happen. Maybe he gets full right. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But I agree. I'm with you on that part. We're fooling ourselves if we think that absolutely nothing is going to happen if this game flops. Yeah. But I think the Halo overall franchise as a whole will be okay. They'll just probably shift direction or whatever they want to do.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. As for their expanding of the portfolio, I think this is pretty 2 wise areas to touch on for him. Global makes more sense on a Japan level, and if we're to believe rumors, like we talked about in Defining Duke Ultimate, we've heard names like Crytek, but most notably like something such as Avalanche, which is a Swedish studio. Could be talking global in the terms of like Europe. But family games, you look at PlayStation, they had Sackboy, they had Knack, Astrobot. They have these great games that come out for a younger audience, Ratchet and Clank, that are also accessible to a older audience. And you know, look, I say this with all due respect. I don't know if Psychonauts 2 is going to be that game. You know, like it doesn't. I could be wrong. I could be entirely wrong. But you know, they are lacking that family side of games. All I'm saying is they got to remake Toy Story 3 and they'll be fine. That's what you got to do.
That's what Maddie wants.
Have you ever played that?
I have not.
Dude, I have not. Good? I'm telling you, I'm telling the audience, it is the best movie tie-in game of all time.
Ooh, oh, that's lofty. Okay, now I gotta check it out.
It has a sandbox mode that is fucking wild. You just walk around this like open world Toy Story game, and you collect like toy parts and you build your own city, dude. It is nuts.
Fire.
Yeah, so they got to remake that. That's their key to more family games.